We're working on getting individuals and youth and people with disabilities to say, I am proud of who I am proud of my disability, I belong, and I can contribute.
I think we realize once we start unpacking the things that we would like to see change either in ourselves or out in the world, that's a rabbit hole. And so Bagley started in a church basement, just a few queer and trans youth coming together so they could hang on.
No one's coming to get me out of this mess. Like, no one's gonna solve this for me if I don't do something about this myself.
Welcome to Boston Talks. My name is Edgar B. Herwick III. I will be your guide through the evening. Not a bad resume on our first speaker. Graduate of Wellesley, then Harvard Kennedy School, recognized by Forbes in the 30 under 30 list, and also doing an amazing work with an amazing organization. She is the CEO of Empowerment Through Integration. If you don't know what that is, you're about to learn. Please welcome to the stage, Sarah Minkara.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Woo! Awesome. So we're gonna start off actually with an activity. So here's what I'm gonna ask you to do. Find a partner. Preferably a partner that you don't know. It's okay if you know them, but preferably, okay? Find them, then close your eyes. Don't close your eyes and then find the partner. First find your partner, then close your eyes. I think it'll be a disaster. Okay. Find your partner and close your eyes. And now, listen to these instructions. You cannot say your name. You cannot say where you're from. You cannot say your educational background and what work you do. Now, in the next minute, introduce yourselves without those 4 things. Go for it.
Clock is ticking. We'll time you, so have at it. Have at it. We'll get the timer going.
Okay, so how did this exercise feel? Awkward, why? You feel like you're at your job.
I feel like, I describe myself as like my job.
Yes. We tend to, exactly. What else?
I got somebody over here. What do you got?
You had to really listen.
You had to really listen. Why?
Because we're so used to being able to take in multi-visual,
Mm-hmm.
multiple kind of stimuli, and you have to really listen.
Exactly.
So you can really try to hear what somebody is saying and what really is important to them.
Exactly. You're just taking in what they're giving you. You're taking in what's important to them. What else?
Who else is brave? There we go. I got a hand up over here. What do you got?
You couldn't see any body language, any facial expressions, any gestures, anything like that.
And how did that make you feel?
How did that make you feel?
It was much more difficult to communicate.
Let me reverse that. It's probably much more difficult because we really base our communication based on the other person's body language. But isn't it also more freeing? Because you're not basing what you're saying based on how other people are receiving it. What else? A couple more comments. And how are the introductions?
Here we go.
I could say it was a little frustrating because you almost were going to go into what you do and why, and you had to be more creative in defining yourself and what's important to you.
Yes. There's so much more to us than our work and education. But what do we tend to do? We tend to associate our value and how we describe ourselves based on our work. What else?
There we go. I got a hand up over here.
Well, I was more sensitive.
Tell me more.
And because I had to listen more deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, it was more intimate in a kind of unexpected way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any more final comments?
Anybody else? Now's your chance.
Beautiful. So the reason why we did this activity, and actually I do these sessions even much more fleshed out, is how can we start getting to know one another on a true, authentic level, without judgment, without any of these distractions. What we bring out is what's received, and vice versa. And that leads to true empowerment, embracing ourselves fully. Thank you so much. So we're going to go to the next part of our section.
She's not done. She's
Yeah, I'm
not
not
done. Have a seat. Have a seat. Let's talk some more.
Yes.
Round of applause, though, for the exercise. I thought that was nice. Very good start. Tell us about you, Sarah. Give me at least a thumbnail sketch. We don't have forever, but
Yes.
give me a little bit of the story.
Yes, and I'll just do the activity first of how it was done, and then we can go more in depth. How I would describe myself without talking about our work,
Yeah,
even though
give
we're going to go into the work later, but you know.
So we'll run the activity. I'm going to close my eyes.
Yes.
Yeah? All right, so do it. I'm the partner. Introduce yourself.
I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. A colleague. A math lover. I love to go out in nature. I find peace in nature. I love to eat chicken. I am a woman. I am Muslim. I am blind, and I'm proud of it.
That's way better than what I would have done, for sure. For sure. Were you born blind?
No, I actually lost my vision at age 7. So I woke up on my 7th birthday, and I had lost most of my vision.
Just all in one fell swoop, one day.
All 98% of it, and then there was 2% usable vision left, and that was a gradual decrease over time.
How terrifying was that?
To be honest, it's probably more terrifying for my mom. For me, I mean, children, it's amazing how they adjust and they adapt. They're just powerful young human beings. And because I had the support from my mom, I remember my mom, so what happened is I woke up on my 7th birthday. I was actually in the summers, we used to go to Lebanon to visit family, and we were in the summer house in the mountains, and I looked out and I couldn't see the mountains. I remember turning to my mom, I was like, Mom, I can't see. And my mom realized that now her second daughter has become blind again. So my elder sister as well, at 7 years old, she lost her vision.
Same thing.
Same thing. And she hugged me really tightly and she said, Sara, everything will be okay. And because I got the sense of support and strength and empowerment from my mom, I don't think, I was very privileged. And I lived my life very fully.
Was it helpful to have a sister who had gone through a similar thing?
I think yes and no. Yes, because my sister did pave the path for me in many different ways, and she faced the brunt of many of the stigma surrounding disability. No, because people assume that all disability equals the same types of accommodation. And they assumed whatever my sister needed meant whatever I needed, right? And there wasn't a separation that we're all individuals and we all need our own types of accommodation. So it's almost like whatever my sister needed, I was on that same path, kind of. But again, I would say my sister paved the path for me in many ways. So I did get my strength from her.
So what happens after your 7th birthday? Your life changes, at least in some ways. Does it immediately sort of, in your mind, sort of change your path or the path you were on, or did you just continue on with life as you would have?
I think at a young age, and there's 2 answers to this. So when I was young, like 7, 8, 9, whatever, it was back to my normal path. I went to school. I went to the regular mainstream schooling. It was just finding ways to adjust and get the accommodations and go to classes, and there was nothing expected less of me. Not outside nor at home. I remember my mom would never let me say the words, I can't do this because I can't see. So my life didn't change that much on a very technical level. But later on in life, my blindness is what gave me the purpose in life. And it's what allowed me to start my nonprofit organization. It gave me meaning to my own life. And that's how it changed it.
So how did you start to piece that together? How did you start to see that path emerge? So,
I was born and raised in the U.S., and as I mentioned, my parents are originally from Lebanon. So we used to visit Lebanon over the summers, and that's when I used to be exposed to the narrative of stigma and charity and I pity you and poor you, you're blind.
How so? How would that manifest itself?
And just people interaction with me and my sister in many different ways. And I used to think to myself, if I lived in that narrative my whole life, I wouldn't be sitting right here. And I realized that most kids with disabilities, whether in Lebanon, across the world, or even here in the US, they're living that narrative of you're less than, you're a burden, you're a charity, nothing is going to amount. And realizing that I was privileged and I got the support, because I got the support system, I knew that this was my calling, kind of. Now again, parallel to that, I was actually majoring in math and economics in undergrad. I had no plans of starting a nonprofit. If you knew me at 18 years old, I'm the most introverted person that you'll ever meet. I would rather be doing math problems in the corner than anything
I was going to say, an introverted math person.
Yes.
Shocking. Total shocker.
Exactly.
Very surprising to me.
Exactly. But, I ended up senior in college founding this nonprofit.
So did you try to fight it? I've spoken with so many people who have that feeling of vocation or sense of purpose, and a number of them sort of suggest to me that they sort of felt it gnawing at them to a certain extent and almost tried to fight it because they were like, I want to do this other thing, but it sort of kept at them. Was it like that for you, or the moment you sort of saw that path were you like, that's it, I'm in?
I fought it a little bit. I actually was going to do a PhD, and I remember almost submitting my applications for these PhD programs, and my thesis advisor looked at me, he's like, Sarah, why are you submitting your applications for these programs? Your eyes light up when you talk about these programs you're doing in Lebanon for the kids, for the blind and visually impaired kids in Lebanon. Go pursue that. And if it wasn't for my thesis advisor, and if it wasn't for him saying, you need to pursue your passion, I don't think I would have gone down that path. And I remember going home and saying, Mom, Dad, I'm no longer applying to PhD programs. I'm running a nonprofit organization. And they're like, what? We did not empower you to do this? Because parents want their kids to live a stable life, right? And, so there's different expectations, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the organization. Yeah. What is it? What do you do?
ETI, Empowerment Through Integration. So it's a nonprofit. We're based here in Cambridge in Harvard Square. It's an international nonprofit that focuses on disrupting and changing the narrative surrounding disability, where we move from a charity-based perspective to a value-based perspective across everyone. So on one hand, we're working with society to really get them to believe that the inclusion of people with disability is a value for all. It's not just a human rights thing, it's a value. You lose out when you don't integrate people with disabilities. So that's on one hand, we're working on society and changing that narrative. And on the other hand, we're working on getting individuals and youth and people with disabilities to say, I am proud of who I am proud of my disability, I belong, and I can contribute. So we're really disrupting the narrative on all levels, from society, communities, to families and individuals with disabilities. So we do that in many different ways, but that's kind of our overarching mission.
Yeah, so, not big goals.
No,
right? Just a small little nonprofit. I want to talk a little bit about the many ways you do this. Yes. So, obviously, all kidding aside, you're talking about a major shift society-wide, internationally, so across multiple kinds of societies, right? That's a huge, ambitious, big, overarching goal.
Yes.
How do you break that down into actionable steps? What do you actually do?
That's a really good question. So we have 3 channels, 3 streams of programming. One is we do direct service programs in countries like Lebanon. So we work directly with the youth, the family, and the communities on the concept of empowerment and inclusion. So we provide life skill trainings, we provide inclusive summer camps, we provide inclusive social project programs, we provide family workshops, a holistic package of programs that really engage everyone towards this concept of inclusion. That's on one hand. Those are our direct service programs. And we go deep within a community. We don't go broad, we go deep, because we want to make sure that we're impacting every single kid that we work with deeply, and in the right way. So that's on one hand. Second, we want to engage every single sector and every single space because everyone needs to be involved towards this narrative change. So we've designed these in-the-dark inclusion trainings that we bring forward to companies, nonprofit, government, and academic institutions. And we provide these trainings across all sectors to bring this narrative change. And also it's an income-generating program, which is important for us. Third is, we want to reach everyone. I mean, it's hard. So that's why we do a lot of public engagements, stuff like this, where we go to different platforms and we bring this message forward, whether it's through podcasts, speaking, writing, op-eds, a wide range of kind of platforms to really bring out this narrative change to the public at large. So that's how we achieve our goal.
How big are you? How many people are working on this?
I know it sounds really huge, right?
Yeah.
So
My God, you guys are
our
enormous.
team is so powerful, and so I have on the U.S. side, I have a team of 7 amazing staff, and actually 3 of them are with me right here. So if we could give them a round of applause, they do amazing work.
Who are you in the crowd? Can you guys raise your hand? Can you folks who are involved over here? So
Yes.
this table over here.
Please keep an eye out on them. Okay, so a team of staff on the 7 staff on the U.S. side with an amazing advisory board, volunteers, 30 amazing committed volunteers, and an amazing board. And then on the Lebanon side, we have a team of 5 staff as well, along with a board there too. So, and then we actually in Lebanon we have around 150 volunteers that serve us every year. 150 volunteers. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the range of disabilities that we're talking about in terms of the youth that become involved in this program or one of your programs?
It's a really good question. So across all of our 3 channels, we really engage on from a broader level of disability. Now in Lebanon, the direct service program, the family workshops and the life skill training, right now we're just working with the blind and visually impaired youth. But all of the other inclusive program, we engage all disabilities. So and then we're planning on expanding the life skill training in the future, so we engage other disabilities, but that's going to be through partnerships because our specialty is the blind and visually impaired when it comes to the technical life skills. Yeah.
So dreams to expand then?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of dreams to expand. Definitely.
What is what would you say through your lifetime, both personally, being blind, and then also sort of working in this space where you're dealing with others who are dealing with that. Has much changed? Have strides been made? Is there sort of a lot more work out there? Is there more work out there than people think in terms of achieving your goals that you're talking about?
Definitely. In the past 10 years, I would say there's been a shift towards really focusing on disability. In the past, it's always been disability is just on its own. Let's create these special programs. Let's put them on the side. Now I think we're slowly moving towards integration, inclusion, which is so important. Now what we still need to do is move from the human rights to the value-based rights, and we're still far from that. But we've, last year we were invited by the president of Lebanon at the presidential palace to do this amazing inclusion training for 5,000 kids that came through. And that's huge. That was never done before. So there's a lot of those efforts happening, but there's so much more work to be done because, for example, only 2% of international funding goes to disability, whereas there's 1 billion individuals in this world with a disability. That's 1/7 of the world's population. There's a huge gap. So there's still a lack of value when it comes to disability issues, yeah.
So if I'm here at this BostonTalks today, and I'm listening to you talk about the work that you do, and I'm hearing you say things like 1/7 of the world's population has a disability, and we have this huge gap, and I want to do something.
Yes.
I want to get involved somehow.
Yes.
What do I do?
Okay.
How do I do it?
Many things. Okay, guys, make sure to write these down, what you need to do. So one is definitely, on a more of a personal, individual level, when you go out in your communities, make sure to be thinking about disability. Make sure that whether you are an employer, whether you're a teacher, whether you are designing programs, anything, make sure you're thinking about integrating disability from a more of a empowering, value-based perspective. That's my personal ask of you first. And make sure you also expect amazing things from people with disabilities, okay? Second thing, on a more technical level that can help us, please consider donating. We actually have a fundraising campaign that's happening out right now. So you can go to our website, etivision.org, etivision.org, and you can immediately go and donate, or you can email me, get in touch with me, and we can find ways to really collaborate. Third, Saturday we actually have a 5K race happening in Cambridge. So we have flyers out. Please consider joining us. We're trying to engage everyone, including people with disabilities. And then lastly, we do a lot of these in the dark inclusion trainings. If you're interested in bringing it to your own organization and company, please come and speak to me. I also do a lot of speaking engagement. It's a source of income for ATI. Please speak to me or my team. So if you have, make sure that whole list, you act on it, please. Okay. I think that's everything, unless I'm forgetting anything. Yeah.
Sarah Minkara, everybody. This is an organization that has been around for almost 40 years now, I think, here in the Boston area. And one of the men behind the organization who's making the wheels turn day in and day out is going to come up and tell us a little bit about the work that they do. So please welcome to the stage, Mr. Kurtland Masarski.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How you feeling, Kurtland?
I feel like I'm a patsy because I'm in between two amazing other speakers. Sarah, you set a really high bar to follow, and Andrea, whoa. So, you know.
I actually, after Sarah's talk, I almost walked over to you and was going to be like, okay, top that.
Yeah, well.
Good luck. Good luck.
I'm pretty comfortable in mediocrity.
Now, come on now. Give me the sketch of Bagley. Obviously, we have a lot of people here who don't know the organization. So we'll talk more in depth, but I want to start, just give us a sense of what it is.
Well, we are the Boston Alliance of LGBTQ plus youth, and you may notice that that doesn't spell Bagley.
True.
We are really old for an LGBTQ plus organization. We were founded almost 40 years ago, as Edgar mentioned just a moment ago, and that puts us just shy of 10 years after Stonewall, which is the 50th anniversary is this year. So as I think my mic levels just changed.
Yeah, wow, that's...
Whoa.
We brought the lows back in.
So even though our acronym doesn't quite work anymore, we were established and continue to be a youth-led, adult-supported organization, specifically serving the needs and working to develop the leadership potential for queer and trans youth. I'm going to switch between queer and trans and LGBTQ+. And if anyone has questions about why I do that, please feel free to chat with me after.
Great.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you got it. Nailed it. You're good. Let's keep going.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you another question. Let's see if you answer that one.
All right, well, try.
Cool. When we do these events, the speakers and we kind of hang out a little bit beforehand, talk a little bit, and one of the things that we were talking about, which I think is an important thing, is you said you wanted to talk about the landscape for
LGBTQ plus.
There it is. For folks on the spectrum right now, today, because you were saying it's not that there's misconception, but you wanted to talk about the complexities of the landscape.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is both, when you're immersed in the work, you're like, how doesn't everyone not get this? And then also infinitely complicated. So can I get a sense of just in the room, who thinks that Massachusetts, okay, if from a scale of 1 to 10, would you give a Massachusetts a 5 or higher for LGBTQ plus issues? And raise your hand.
When you say, you mean just in terms of their responsiveness to it, or?
Right. As far as being a welcoming, affirming, legally, okay. So that's a 5 or higher. I would agree with you. That was completely unplanned. I had no idea what I was doing when I asked you that question.
I'll ask the questions here, not you.
So Massachusetts is fortunate as far as, from a socio-political perspective, that in many ways our laws and a lot of at least our outer culture is safer for LGBTQ plus or queer and trans people in the state. However, to quote 2 of my favorite podcast ladies, we also have to live with the tension that we just voted. We had a public, or we had a ballot up for vote, the popular vote on people's civil rights. And I think most of us have a basic understanding that you're not supposed to put civil rights up on a ballot. So yes, we kicked butt. We have a mandate in this state. Almost 70% of people voted to uphold transgender and gender non-binary rights in this state, which is fantastic and necessary and life-saving. And also the damage that was done simply by having that question on the ballot was devastating. It bankrupted people emotionally. It sucked up a ton of financial resources throughout the state. And it created the potential for a narrative that young people, and people of all ages, but especially young people, heard about their identities not even being valid, that they don't exist, or perhaps that they shouldn't. And so when we think about the landscape, we have to really take stock and make sure we celebrate our very significant and real wins, and also realize that wherever we are geographically, we're still talking about groups and young people who have their very identity attacked. And it's attacked in a number of ways.
Is that, on a certain level, is that infuriating? The idea that, like, as you suggest, you sort of agree. We're in a place, in a state in Massachusetts, and we're in an urban area in Massachusetts, which I would imagine probably scores even higher than the state as a whole in terms of, being welcoming. Mm-hmm. And yet, even in this place, there's this feeling like somebody's always nipping at your heels, trying to claw back, even in a place that's maybe arguably doing better than a lot of other places in the country in terms of these issues. Is that tiring?
I meant to do a spa at my office today. I actually brought, I think it's in my bag backstage, with like the little eye things that you can get at Sephora. They are not currently a sponsor of Bagley, but if anyone's in the room. Yes, it is terrifying, infuriating, and I wish I could be selfless about it in that, I am in so much of my life and so much of my time advocating on behalf of queer and trans youth. But there is a deep well of sadness and pain, regardless of your age, when we look at the political landscape. We are privileged here in Massachusetts, and many of us sitting here have differing levels of privilege. But when every news story, when there is a national climate where your personhood, I know that's a loaded word right now, but when your viability as a person, God, I'm really thinking about what happened across the country this week. I'm sorry. When your identity is under attack consistently, regardless if it happens here in Massachusetts or across the country, that takes a real toll. And when you don't have the resources that someone in my position might, that toll around mental health, that toll around taking a moment for self-care and finding community that is healthy and supportive, is something that a lot of people either don't or can't find. And there's no, the way that plays out is never pretty. So yes, I am infuriated.
So your organization, what it's all about is creating a space for people to help as these issues play out, is the idea, right? So let's talk about what you do.
All right, let's talk about taking action. So yeah, I mean, I think like so many of us in this room, and certainly what I've heard from Sarah and in my brief conversations with Andrea, I think we realize once we start unpacking the things that we would like to see change either in ourselves or out in the world, that's a rabbit hole. And so Bagley started in a church basement, just a few queer and trans youth, although terminology was very different in 1980, coming together so they could hang on, so that they could be here the next day and the next day and the next day. And that is still at the very core of our work, although it has evolved significantly. So we were able to open a new community center in downtown Boston, right across from Government Center. We moved in last August. We had our official opening in October, and it's over 25,000. Wait, is that right? 25,000? That's a lot of square feet. No, maybe that's right.
I'm not good at square footage. I'm not going to help you there at all. Wait, Sarah's into math. Sarah?
Yeah. Come shill for Bagley. It is a fantastic space, 2 floors, accessible.
So what happens there?
Where we can have social support groups, and we have a sexual health clinic that does not ask for ID or health insurance, although we can provide a little bit of minor case management and get you health insurance. We also have behavioral and health therapy. We have art classes. We have family dinner. We have cooking classes. And we are right next to a gym that I'm working on trying to get us a discount. That might be selfish. Andrea. Everything from social support, but I think the core of what happens there is community building. And so what we do, and I was told not to overuse this word, but when we think about empowerment, we think about all the skills, expertise, and lived experience of the people who are coming to enjoy one another's company. And so it's certainly our job at Bagley and in our community center to run programming and make sure that there's some structure and certainly resources and the lights are on. But we really want to honor all the young people who come to us and say, largely we know that you know what to do. Whether that to do is survive, fight, be an activist, educate their peers. That can really run the gamut, but the core principle is that we trust their expertise.
So how does that play out? How does, that idea, which I'm fascinated by, that this is an organization that is now about to hit 40 years, that is,
Younger than me, by the way.
What's that?
No, older than
Older
me.
than you. There you go, older than you.
Calling myself out.
Obviously. Jeez. But it's for youth by youth, and you're very clear to say that like this is youth run and sort of adult fostered.
Yeah.
So how does that play out though? Like the mechanics of that, how does it work?
So we make sure to try to live that value by we have elections every year for our youth leadership committee, which is largely the steering committee for most of our Boston-based programming. We also have youth committees for any of the statewide events that we have. We have one coming up on Saturday. We're not in competition. We're in a partnership, hopefully with ETI. But it's
what time's your event? What time's the 5K?
Yeah, what time's the 5K?
6:30 in the morning? Oh, 6:30 in the evening. What time's your event?
That's great. No, we start at like 9 and in the morning. Okay.
You're welcome.
Great.
We planned your Saturday for you, everybody.
So it's Massachusetts Youth Pride, and this includes a march and a festival, and these are all youth planned. We also always make sure that we have our 2 co-chairs of the Youth Leadership Committee on our board of directors. So we're making sure that we involve youth at every level of the organization. Of course, if you look at it like a pyramid, You've got the youth membership who are consulted by their elected representatives. See how this works? And then the elected representatives then have co-chairs who are then represented on the board of directors. And we also try to stipend and employ as many of the youth who come to us as possible. So we have mechanisms for compensating young people for their work.
And how many young people are you serving, dealing with, or getting involved sort of yearly, monthly, weekly, daily? Like, what does it look like?
Well, they would probably say they have to deal with me, but through our AGLI network, which is our statewide program, we fund and provide technical assistance to about 16 other LGBTQ plus youth groups across the state, which ends up representing about 6,000 queer and trans youth throughout the state.
So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's why I'm tired.
This makes sense. What about you? What's your personal role in this? Like, what do you do? Take me through an average Tuesday in your life.
Well, I have supervision on Tuesdays. And usually therapy too. So, so my role as the director of development and marketing is to ask everyone here for money, but really what it is to create partnerships both with our individual donors and our institutional funders and our business community, and to participate in evenings like this. There's a lot of jargon around marketing where, like, are you an ambassador or are you an evangelical? No, we're here in community, we're here in partnership, and we're here to talk about what matters to all of us. And so, I think my chief responsibility is to play this role where I listen. I love that my office is in the community center. So I have youth in my office really frequently. I have stress toys on my desk. I've got pictures of my dogs and cats, and I listen to our stakeholders, and then I communicate that outward and externally, sometimes with the hope of getting resources to keep the lights on. Our food budget is $20,000. But if you're not feeding folks, if you're not meeting their most basic needs, how can you ask them to lead a revolution?
Great
they're
point.
hungry.
Great point. If I want to be involved, know more about what you do, interface with it in some way, you obviously said there's an event this weekend. Are there lots of things like that? What's the way I do that? Give you money? That is your job, so yes, right? But
www.bagley.org/donate.
But for real.
Yeah. Because this is a relatively intimate crowd, I would really ask folks, if you're interested, come and talk to me and email me directly. I have business cards. I want to talk to people. I want to hear what people's perceptions and concerns are, and my guess is that almost everybody in this room has already thought about someone or themselves that could have or would benefit from the type of environment and community that Bagley builds. So I want to hear that from anyone who has the time and energy to tell me that story. Of course, we're always looking for people to be involved via donations and volunteerism, and so I really do, all jokes aside, actually, I'm going to take some advice. If you all would like to, take out your phones and find us on Facebook. You just type in Bagley, B-A-G-L-Y, right? That's how you spell it. And follow us. And we do most of our social media via Facebook because it's just, we are a small staff. But we'd love to see you. And I'd love to give you a tour of the community center. And I'm sure that as we work together, we'll find many ways to I just keep on thinking of that phrase, be in community with each other.
Let's hear it for him. Kirtland Masarsky, let's hear it one more time. As I said, one more speaker left with us tonight. CEO of Bar and Soul. We'll talk a little bit about that, but also an author. And I love the title of the book, and I think we'll probably start there. Own it all. Own it all. It feels like a message of empowerment to me. Please welcome to the stage, Andrea, Isabel, Lucas. What do you have in your hands there, Andrea? Why, it's a book.
Just a little something.
What's that book all about?
This is my book, Own It All. So I'm Andrea. I am the owner of Bar and Soul Studios. We have 5 locations around New England. We offer bar and yoga. I completely bootstrapped this company. When I started, I was on food stamps. I was recovering from domestic violence. I had a child when I was 19. I ran away from home when I was 14, and I slept in those clothing donation dumpsters for like the Salvation Army. So I really want people to know that Bar and Soul is now a multi-million-dollar company. I'm very proud of that. And
all right.
there weren't any investors or anything like that. I just, I built it myself. And that's really what Own It All is about, is owning your dreams, owning what you're capable of contributing, and really claiming actually what you want for yourself too, and like being validated in that like, why shouldn't you have what you want? Like, you're just as entitled as anybody. But Own It All has another message too, which is about taking responsibility. You can take responsibility for your situation, even if you didn't ask to be in that situation and wouldn't have chosen it. So you can still own it, and you can decide where your story is going to go from there.
Oh, that is a lot in like a minute.
Bye.
Jeez. Now what? You sort of glossed over it there, but talk to me a little bit about what sounds like was a very challenging number of years there. What happened?
I definitely had a difficult childhood. I, wouldn't have run away at 14 and been, sleeping in clothing dumpsters if I had felt safer at home. So I had a lot of disadvantages. Having a child when I was 19, my son is 19 now, which is trippy. But, I am so glad no one showed me the scoreboard as to how many socioeconomic points I lost when I became a mom at 19, because that really might have dictated what I thought was possible for me. But I always just thought I had a lot of potential, and I should just keep on trying to achieve everything I could, and regardless of whatever things might have been kind of stacked against me. That being said, I had a lot of privilege. There's a lot of things I haven't had to deal with. I've never been discriminated against for my skin color, for my sexual orientation. I've always had access to medical care and clean water, so we all have our challenges and our privileges. And so anyway, to get back to your question, I had a wake-up call when I found myself in the emergency room having facial x-rays and skull x-rays to make sure that my skull wasn't fractured after being assaulted. And that, sucked a lot. And when I ever called home to tell my family about what all was happening, I genuinely am not saying this to disparage my family or my dad in any way. There was genuine sadness in his voice when he said it, but his response was, ugh, what are you gonna do? You can't leave. So that was a very pivotal moment.
You can't leave, like you can't leave the relationship you're in?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. And I think he just believed I had nothing better to, before that relationship, I was a stripper. That's how I supported myself and my young son. So I really didn't have anything great to go back to, which was why I was still in the relationship long enough to have that happen, really. And that was very empowering, especially economically in a lot of ways, but I wasn't in a hurry to really go back to that. So, I stayed in a situation that progressively got worse and worse. And that night that I ever landed in the emergency room, I certainly didn't think it was going to get that bad. And when I ever had that response from my family, I had a moment of oh, holy crap, no one's coming to get me out of this mess. No one's going to solve this for me. If I don't do something about this myself, I'm absolutely screwed. And I realized that I was 100% responsible for whatever was going to happen from there on out for me and for my son and, for my future. And I just realized, like, oh God, no one's coming to get me out of this mess. No one's going to clean it up. Like, it's on me. What happens from here on out? So while, of course, there is value, especially I'm not a mental health professional, but I am certain there is value in being able to identify as a victim for a time. And if I hadn't seen myself as a victim and seen that situation as absolutely not okay, I might not have gotten out of it. So it was important for me for a time, but it was also important for me to see myself as the one in the driver's seat and actually be able to take some responsibility for having ended up there and like, okay, what were the choices I made that contributed to this? And what are my choices from here on out? What can I do to really drive like the bus from now on? And not act like I'm at the mercy of my circumstances, but actually truly see myself as empowered, meaning I have a choice, and I get to say what happens next.
So I think a lot about this idea of and I'm obviously not a mental health professional either, but what I call survival mode, which I think most people have some experience at some point in their life sort of being in. And it sounds like in your situation, I imagine there was at least a period of time where you're in survival mode, where it's scraping through to the next hour or day or week. And, it takes a lot of energy, it takes courage to do that. And I think there are skills that you can build that can be good, but it's also a place where you can get trapped, where you no longer see any path beyond what's immediately in front of you. How did you get yourself to find space or a place to start to imagine a world beyond that survival mode?
Okay, so the biggest mantra that I've had since ever this began was just take the biggest risk you can stomach for today. Because believe me, the things that were really significant for me in the beginning of this whole journey really wouldn't look like much now compared to where I am today. And
For
example, getting out of that relationship was tricky, and I used the local crisis center. And anyone who comes to me, and I do get Facebook messages or emails from clients of mine that have read a blog post that I've written, and they're like, what do I do? I'm in a situation. And I always say, oh my God, call your local crisis center. They're geniuses. Like, they will evaluate all the different factors in your situation and help you find the right path out for you. But like for me, and this is at the advice of the crisis center, it was complicated. It was pretend you're not leaving yet, act like you're trying to reconcile, get him to agree to certain things legally so that you can leave the state. That was the level of survival mode initially. So that was a day-by-day survival. When I discovered bar fitness and began to get really physically and mentally and emotionally empowered by the changes that my body was going through and, really the toughness I was really cultivating in myself, I was approached to be a teacher, and I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, that felt like an absolute yes right away. And when it came time to get up and practice teach, even in front of like one-on-one with a friend, literally a voice in my head was so loud, just being like, just shut up, just shut up, just shut up. Even when I was alone, I could barely push my voice out of my body. I was so down on myself. So like that was the biggest risk I could take then, was like practicing with friends. And it was, teaching a class to maybe 20 people. And eventually it was leaving the security of a management job that I had fought really hard to get to go out on my own. And again, anyway, coming back to the point, whatever is the baby step that is like palatable for today. It's the biggest risk you can stomach just for now. It's not having to see the end of the road. It's just like seeing as far as your headlights when you're driving at night.
At some point, is it that you start taking bigger risks, that you start eventually imagining bigger things, that you start to sort of piece together, like the next biggest risk is something that now is encompassing the next 6 months or the next year. Is that the deal?
That's exactly the deal.
Like plant a seed and
That's
it'll
like
grow kind
totally
of
the thing.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you take a risk and it seems scary at the time, but you're like, oh God, I have butterflies, but like whatever, fine, I'll do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh crap, I just did that. I might be kind of awesome. And then you're like, well, I wonder
And then
if
like
I...
an addict, you need
yeah,
your next
exactly.
hit,
Then you need a little more.
to be a little bit bigger.
And that's what happens. And so your risk tolerance increases and your self-esteem and your confidence increase. Because I want to meet these people that are getting something out of doing affirmations in the mirror, because I just don't think you can get confidence that way. Like, I think you have to prove it to yourself. Like, I feel like you got to earn it. You got to be like, you know what? I was totally scared to do that thing.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I might be kind of a badass. And I think I'm going to try another thing.
Anybody do affirmations in the mirror? Anybody want to, in defense of affirmations in the mirror? Anyone? No, they're not even going to dare, even if they do it. How'd you not get swallowed up by all of this? Like, it's sort of remarkable to me that, like, what was the thing that kept you going? Or was it a series of a million little things?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, thank God I had my son in a way, because I really wanted to be great for him so that he could have a great life. Also, though, I really always knew I had something big to contribute. And I have to say, actually, Sarah, you were talking about that conversation that you had with your advisor when they were like, psh, what are you talking about? Like, just do your nonprofit like you know you want to do. And it's interesting how much power we have in the spoken word and the things we say to each other. And I weirdly remember when I was 14, I was like in the kitchen making something. And my aunt stopping me and like looking at my hands and being like, there's just something about you, like you're destined for greatness and you're going to do great things.
That's pretty good. So basically, but what if I'm not destined for greatness?
Here's the thing about destiny.
Is there any hope for me if I'm not destined for greatness?
Destined is a state of mind, and you can choose to be destined for whatever the hell you want, because it's not something outside of you, and that's the whole point, and that's what owning it all is.
Give it to me.
God damn it.
I'm ready to own it. I'm ready to own it.
So,
help me own it.
Okay, another piece of language that really changed my life was a piece of street art by an artist named Eddie Kalla, and it said, if you want to achieve greatness, stop asking for permission. And I realized, oh, holy crap, literally no one has the authority to grant me my destiny or my greatness or my unworthiness or my worthiness. Like, I literally just have to pick myself and just choose. So I just think it's a choice that's available to all of us.
Okay, well, let's talk about some actionable steps. One, I assume, is buy your book, because I think there's probably a lot of this.
Obviously.
In there. Yes. But give me some previews or some tips from the book. What are some things that I can do? We already had one, which I think is really good. Take the biggest risk you can take for that day.
For that day, yeah.
Do you have other ones?
Okay, the one that everybody likes the best, who's read the book, and the one I keep getting messaged about, which I'm a fan also, is actually sounds counterintuitive, but it's do the bare minimum. Because
I'm liking it.
Yeah, it's kind of on the same idea with baby steps.
Yes.
But, you know, we try so hard to be so amazing at so many things, and we can be very perfectionistic, some of us more than others. And it's like we're supposed to be, you know, I don't know, especially now with social media and stuff, it's like our house is supposed to look awesome. We're supposed to eat healthy. Like, it's a moral imperative that we exercise. We're supposed to be really stylish, supposed to be good parents, but we're supposed to make a lot of money. And somehow those two things, I don't know, they're supposed to happen at the same time. So the deal is, if you've got that many boxes to check, you decide what is the bare minimum for you in each of those boxes that you can like lay your head on the pillow at night and be like, you know what, damn it, I did enough. Because otherwise, how do you ever feel like you've done enough? So bare minimum for fitness, like literally when I was writing this book just a couple of years ago, was I will work out 2 times a week. I owned a fitness company with 5 locations, and I was just like, please God, just 2 workouts a week. Because that's what I could muster at that time. Yeah, and now I'm doing more. Great, awesome. No one's saying you can't do more than your bare minimum. But if you're
just set the bare minimum.
Exactly, set the bare minimum, and now it's like a promise that you've made to yourself. So don't get crazy on the bare, like literally the bare minimum. Like if you're,
be honest.
Yeah,
this is the bare minimum.
if you just had a baby, maybe it's like I will shower every 48 hours.
And I think every single person who's ever had a baby just laughed at that. So, yes. Okay. All right. Give me another one. I want to be more empowered.
Okay.
Empower me more. I feel like I own some of it.
Okay.
Help me own it all.
Own it all. All right. Here's the thing. You have to say out loud what you want to create for yourself or for your contribution that you want to make. So you can set a goal, but it's not real if you haven't told anybody. And we kind of suck at keeping the promises we make to ourselves. We're just
that's really true.
Crappy
That's
friends to ourselves like that.
True.
Yeah, but like other people, if you tell them you're going to do something, the accountability's there.
Now.
Yeah.
You're on the hook.
Yeah, you just have to say it. And the cool thing is, once you've said it out loud, yes, there's accountability. Plus, like, other people start to see you that way. And they just relate to you like that's who you are.
And they sort of ask you about it.
It's like a self-fulfilling.
Yes,
Yes,
Did you
exactly.
Do the thing?
And then they're like, oh my God, did I ever tell you about like my cousin who has this business that's all about that thing that you're into? And now you're connected and it's all like spreading out into your network. So it's really hard to do anything by yourself. I don't think it's very productive.
Are these things going to help me own a multi-million-dollar business? How do I do that?
Oh yeah, if that's what you want, then absolutely.
If that's my destiny.
So
if that's my self-chosen
yes,
destiny.
if that's your self-chosen. So I would start by just telling everyone here in this room that.
Yes.
Okay. And then.
And then I do it.
And then you just start
And
doing
then I do
it.
the bare minimum.
You do it as unglamorous and unsexy as you have available to you until it gets more glamorous and more sexy progressively.
Was any of this scary? Was the success part scary when it started happening?
Everything is always scary. Every single thing is always scary. The thing that scares me the most is if I'm not doing anything scary. So I'm more afraid of like stagnation and not achieving my potential than I am of failure.
So tell me about the studio, the business. What's it all about?
Okay, so we offer bar, which is based on a fitness method that was created by a modern dancer in 1959. She was very saucy. Her name was Lottie Burke. And it's super easy on the joints, really challenging on the muscles. I've had guys from the Celtics and, the Bruins in my class. Really? Oh, absolutely. I've had pregnant moms. I've had women in their 70s. Everyone's getting their butt kicked at their own level.
Who's done it? Who's done? Yeah. A lot of people. Yeah. Who's not done it? That's about an even split.
Almost.
Wow, half of you have done it. All right.
So bar is amazing. It's something you can modify to wherever you're at, and it's incredibly effective and challenging. Obviously, I highly recommend it. I've been doing it for about 13 years now. And also we offer yoga. And, our studios are really about what we exist for in the world is to empower women. So men are absolutely welcome. And, so
sort of.
No, really. We need you guys. We really need you guys.
Okay.
It's kind of like that whole thing I was just saying about if I try to achieve my goals but don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Like if women try to empower ourselves but don't involve dudes, it's not
that's a really
effective at all.
Yep.
So we actually really, really desperately need each other. And but anyway, what it's about is creating a culture and a community that's super empowering and validating and encouraging and inspiring that has this ripple effect where you're like, holy crap, I did this hard thing in class today. And, I might have opened up and shared a little bit to the person next to me and I felt validated by their listening. And that has a ripple effect that I hope will affect the culture. We are in Harvard Square, Melrose, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Providence, Rhode Island.
And is the goal, 20 more locations? Are you going national? Are you going international?
How did you know?
Well, because now you're taking huge risks. You got to take big risks.
Yeah,
now,
that
right?
is absolutely the goal.
Is that it?
For sure, absolutely.
How do you get there? How different does your sort of day-to-day and the things that scare you now and the challenges that you face now and the bare minimums that you set now, how different does that feel than your life did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago?
Oh, God, I am so lucky, and I have it so good now, and I know it. The things that I take for granted now, I have my house cleaned once a week. Do you know how amazing? I would have killed for that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm not teaching classes anymore. I work from home. I'm behind the scenes. I'm hiring. Right now, today, I did an Instagram story takeover for the Bar and Soul, and it was like, okay, now I'm interviewing people for a marketing manager, and now I'm doing a quick workout at home because I'm doing this awesome WGBH thing tonight. And
yeah,
so it's
it is
changed.
awesome too.
Right?
I was super awesome.
I was the janitor, the web designer, all those things.
Is it
in the
hard to
beginning.
let that stuff go as you've scaled up, as you've gotten bigger?
Yeah, but it's the only way to scale up. So the biggest thing is
how did you learn all this stuff? How did you figure this all out?
I have to tell you, I do a lot of personal development work, and my favorite, there's a lot of opportunities within the yoga scene to do a ton of awesome personal development, but my favorite place to get personal development is a place called Landmark that does all these cool seminars. And one course that I did was literally about how to build teams, get other people really jazzed about your vision, and then share the credit with them so you can actually get something done rather than being like, it's mine, mine, mine. That was a game changer for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you suspect that the sort of thing you're doing now, is that your life's work now? Is it there are more books and articles and writing? Is there some other big horizon thing that you're looking toward attacking, or is this is what you're doing now and this is the rest of your life?
As soon as I started to get up in front of people as a bar and yoga teacher, I wanted to say so much to them, more than I could always just say in that 1 hour. So I would start blogging and sharing about my past with domestic violence and how I overcame that, because I really wanted other people to not feel alone and to feel like anything was possible for them. Once I had the studios, I loved that I could create this culture and I could create this class format that my teachers would do, and it wasn't enough still. So that's why I had to write the book, was to really say everything I had to say to people. So I want more books, and I want more locations so we can reach more people. I actually have a little seed that's buried in here it hasn't propped up yet, but I love the idea when I think about national expansion. How could I do that in a way that would empower women who might not otherwise have the opportunity to have their own business? So how could I create a model?
So which is
a
kind
franchise.
of sort of like your team building model, which is to say empower somebody and then give them the credit and make it theirs.
Yes.
So this franchise model.
Taking it to the next level, where it's how could I empower women to become franchise owners who don't have $200,000 in liquid assets?
Huh. All right. So if I'm inspired now, I'm 100% into what you're talking about. What do I do now? I assume I read your book.
Okay, yes. I brought copies if anyone wants to buy one. I have some. I'm over at that table. And the girls will help you. Those are the friendly faces of Bar and Soul over there. And I have a couple free things for you, actually. If you text my name, Andrea, to 66866.
66866.
Yeah.
So
You'll
that's
just
4 6s with an 8 in the middle.
Exactly.
Everybody got it?
You'll get a free chapter, a free workbook to go along with the chapter, and a free awesome meditation about how to make that one mindset shift that I made to step into your empowerment and to own it all.
And if I want to try bar?
Please come on over to Bar and Soul. We're so friendly and welcoming, and I didn't mention this, but we don't have mirrors because we really want to focus on non-comparison and non-self-judgment. So we are expert at making new people feel really welcome and really comfortable. Like I said, we're in Harvard Square, Melrose, Portsmouth, and Providence, and it's barsoul.com.
Andrea, Isabel, Lucas, everybody, let's hear it for her.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
That's it for us. I hope everybody gets home safe. We will be back